Okay, first things first, helmet. It is the most important equipment when bike riding. To fit your helmet, take the helmet, place it over your head, make sure it's completely parallel to the ground. Take the clips, pull it around your ears, making sure that the nodes around your ear is pulled beneath the earlobe. Clip it together, taking 2 fingers, placing them beneath the chin and making sure there's tight grip between the 2 fingers and your chin. That's a perfectly fitted helmet. The level of the front of the helmet should be parallel with the ground and it's nice and snug. There's no sideways movement in the helmet. The other thing to remember is on the back of the helmet there's a little dial. Most helmets will have this dial, some won't. Just tighten up that dial so that it's nice and tight around the head. What it does, it locks the base of the cranium or the head into the helmet itself, keeping it nice and snug. Caring for your helmet. When you have your helmet, you should never ever just leave your helmet lying around on the ground. It's obviously roll on the bottom, so you need to place your helmet flat down on the ground. The other way to look after your helmet whenever you're stopping is to take your helmet, clip it through the center of your handlebars, and clip it around. With your bike seat, you'll need to adjust the bike seat. The bottom of the seat, of the length of your leg, you have an almost straight leg. Now, if you're not so confident on a bike, you might like to keep the seat lower to the ground. So what we'll need to do is adjust the bike seat. Either an Allen key or quick release, and simply moving that bike seat down to a height where I will be able to touch both sides of the ground whilst I'm on the bike. That way I feel more comfortable and easily able to dismount the bike whenever I need to. So braking on a bike is relatively simple. The most important thing to remember is pressing both levers together evenly at the same time. We have another technique we call setting up. Setting up simply means looking at the traffic in front of us and predicting things that might happen in front of us. So we set up our brakes by placing our fingers over the brake levers, ready to depress the levers in case anything happens in front of us whilst we're riding. Looking at our brake levers here on our bicycles, many people don't know where to start. Which brake controls which wheel, the front or back? The easiest way to do this is as follows. So 1, we can follow the cables to follow which lever controls which wheel. The second way to do this is by simply pushing or squeezing one brake lever, pushing the bike forwards and looking at which wheel is locking. So obviously again, by squeezing this brake lever, the back wheel is locking. I know my right lever controls my back brake. By pressing the left lever and pushing the bike forwards, I'd be doing a Superman over the handlebars right now. So we know that the front brake is controlled by the left lever. Gears on your bicycle are your best friend. They make it easier to ride up a hill, and they also allow you to ride faster and safer as you travel down a hill. The various components of the gears. Firstly, made up of the gear levers, okay? Either by depressing the thumb shifter or the finger shifter on the back to change positions of the chain on the front wheel chain or our cassette at the rear of our bicycle. Let's go down there and look at these various components of the bicycle here. We have our front derailleur here, which is responsible for changing the chain from the big ring to the small ring. And at the back of the bicycle, we have our cassette and we have our rear derailleur. And obviously we have the wires or the cables that connect between the derailleur all the way up to the levers at the top. So as your chain goes up the cassette, meaning the bigger cogs at the back, the gear is the easiest. As I move the chain down towards the small cogs on the back of the cassette, then it means my pedaling stroke is going to be harder. Okay, we call this a high gear, and we call, as we move up the cassette, an easy gear, okay, or a low gear. So the big chain ring at the front is the opposite to the back. The chain on the big chain ring at the front means you are pedaling hard, meaning a lot more resistance. If I move the chain into the smallest chain ring at the front, then my pedaling stroke gets faster and easier. Setting up for the gears, if we're about to go down a big hill ahead of us, we want to make, first of all, sure that we're in the big chain ring at the front in preparation for the downhill. And then we move our gears or our shifters down to the smallest chain ring or the smallest cogs in the back of the cassette. Setting up the gears to go up an uphill is preparation, first of all, with the chain being in the smallest ring on the front cogs or the front chain ring, and at the back of the bike, ensuring that the chain is in the biggest wheel on the cassette. Setting up your gears. If I'm about to ride down a downhill, I need to set my gears up to make sure that I'm in a hard gear with more resistance. If, for instance, I'm in a very easy gear and I decide to ride down a hill in a very easy gear, it's less safe because I have no traction or anything to push on my pedals. Let's have a look what it looks like. In preparation for the hill that looms in front of you, you need to make sure your gears are in a nice, easy position so that that hill is very easy for you to ride up to the top. Now, the trick to doing this in setting up your gears is to make sure you change your gears before you get to the hill. Here's how we set up our gears correctly. Here comes a hill, change our gears, nice and easy. Help you go up the hill. Signals of the road. It's very important that you communicate on a bike, both to be able to notify other cyclists around you and also the cars, both oncoming and traffic coming from behind you. The way we do this is to use hand signals. Here are a couple of basic signals to help you on the road. To slow down and prepare to stop. Stop. Turning left and turning right. Marking out an obstacle on the road